Lean on your brother tonight. Let your brother count on you every play tonight. Okay? And come out and have fun. The gates are locked. Ain't nobody getting out now. They can't run. The gates are locked. Let's bring the fight to them, guys. Yes, sir. All right, brother. Let's pray.
The Northeast Texas Sports Network is dedicated on delivering the most entertaining sports broadcasts in East Texas. And if you're interested in having your next sporting event streamed live, visit us online at netsn.com.
And good evening, everyone, for part 2 of our preseason edition of bEast from the East. It's Mr. Ness and Bret Sweeney. Alongside me tonight, KO Kyle Owens and the coach, Coach Jereme Hubbard. How's it going, guys?
Good. Oh,
We're getting closer, right? Man,
there it is.
Mike drill, always, right?
Yeah.
We're getting closer.
We're 1 week closer to the season, guys. It's upon us. Next week, during this time, we'll have our Week 1 pick'ems. We'll go through our pick'em challenge and everything. So if you haven't gone to the app, get on there. The picks are available, so you can go and pick your your teams to win week one. A really good group of pick'ems. I'm excited to get to talk about that each week here on the Beast from the East. But, man, preseason, we talked big school last week. Now it's the little guys, but, man, there's a lot of good little teams out there in East Texas we get to talk about this year, guys.
Probably
This
too many
is the deepest classification in East Texas. 3A for sure. I would say 3A, 2A, and below. I mean, there's so many good teams, and I'll say maybe not a lot of teams that we think can go win state necessarily, but there's a lot of really, really good football teams that I think we're going to have playing pretty deep in the playoffs. They can't all win state.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if we had one win state in each of those classes, though. I mean, realistically, there's a ton of good teams in there. And you're right, man. We talked about this last week with the 4A poll a little bit, and you could have teams that are 11, 12, 13 be in the top 7 or 8. You wouldn't be upset. Good luck with this one. We're gonna go through the poll here in a minute on this group, and then we're gonna list 12 more teams that could have been in there probably. I mean, that's how wide open it is. I love it. There's a lot of talent at small school level.
Yeah, let's get this up here just to show kind of what our preseason poll looks like here for NetSN. We've got Malakoff at 1, Winsboro at 2, Dangerfield at 3, with a tie with Timpson. You got Garrison at 5, Palestine Westwood is 6, Lovelady and Tatum is 7 at tied, and then Troop and Arp tied. Well, Troop and Arp, can they ever be tied to anything? That's kind of a touchy subject there.
Yeah, I bet they don't like that. If they know it, they don't like it. If they've been on the new app, they don't like it if they've seen that.
Yes, that's true. What's your guys' first thoughts about this poll we got here?
Well, I'm going to contradict myself.
Uh-oh.
But there's a reason why. So, based off last week and how I ranked the 4A teams, according to my logic, then Malakoff and Timpson should be tied for number 1, right? But I will say this, because this is involving different classifications, not divisions, different classifications. I don't think you could put them as they are the top 2A team in the poll. But anyway, I'm good with Malakoff being number 1. I think they bring back Mike Jones. Who? Mike
Jones? Hey, question for you, Kyle. Is Malakoff an East Texas team?
I'm so glad you asked that. So Now, we would all consider, besides NetSN, obviously, we would consider Dave Campbell's Texas football as a Bible for Texas high school football, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So, if keeping with the Bible theme here, what it is Scripture, we don't argue, correct?
We shouldn't argue.
We
shouldn't. We shouldn't if we're good followers. We should not argue the Scripture. You're correct.
Okay. Well, then, Dave Camp, now, we've had this argument. I consider Malakoff East Texas. Everybody on this channel considers Malakoff East Texas. But they are in a weird area where they're kind of fringe, and both regions want to claim them. But if we go by the quote-unquote Bible of Texas high school football, they said Malakoff is an East Texas team. So to everyone that says they're a DFW team, that's fine. You can have them too. But just know they're East Texas first. They are an East Texas team that can be DFW by proxy, but they're not a DFW.
I have another question for you. So if Malakoff went 1-9 last year, would DFW want to claim them?
No.
Ooh.
No.
The answer is no. Okay. Because they don't claim the other teams in Henderson County, like Athens or Maybank or Oakwood.
Okay.
Or not Oakwood, I'm sorry. But there's teams, Trinidad, they don't claim Trinidad in there as DFW.
Only want to claim teams that are good and try to steal them from East Texas. Okay. All right. That answers the question.
Can't steal them from East Texas. They can be both, but they are East Texas first. But moving on.
Thank you for clarifying that. You really clarified that for me. Hopefully it clarifies for those that are confused.
Well, some will, like Jereme said, like y'all said, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. All right. Okay. So you can give everybody the facts, but if they don't want to believe them as facts.
Although if you don't want to call Malakoff East Texas. Maybe you've been drinking too much. I don't know, but
that is true. So Malakoff at number 1, whether it's DFW, Rio Grande Valley, Panhandle, they're number 1 in 3A. Malakoff is the best team in 3A. So Malakoff at number 1 is I'm fine with.
And who's their quarterback again?
Mike Jones.
Who? Okay.
Mike Jones.
Sorry, I'm ready for football. I'm ready for that.
If you want to call Mike Jones, you could call him at 281-330-8004. And
not anymore, though.
That is, well,
but you
Jeremy,
could.
just let him call it. Let him find it out. Let him figure it out.
All right, we've established you think Malakoff's one. Who you got going down the list?
So here's my issue. I would probably, you know what? Matter of fact, I am going to go with my logic. So full transparency, I don't think I got my 3A poll in. I don't think I got it in time. I did the 6A, 5A, and the 4A one. I don't think I got the 3A one in time. So this is live. Malakoff 1, I think I would put Timpson number 2 because they did win the state title last year. And even though they lost do-it-all Terry Bussey, who a couple weeks ago had a kickoff return for a touchdown to open the A&M scrimmage. So he's doing all right.
He's not too bad.
No, even though they lost Bussey, they still have J.J. Garner that's there. They still have Doctavian Johnson on the outside. They still have athletes. Their coach, even though they lost Coach T, they got Coach Gandy, who's been on the staff for years. He's familiar with the kids. The kids are familiar with him. Like, I don't think we're going to have a big drop-off from Timpson. They're not Terry Bussey isn't there. They're not going to be winning these games by 50 points, I don't think. But I still think Timpson arguably could be the best 2A team in the state, although Garrison will have a lot to say about that as well. So I would probably put Timpson at 2. I put Malakoff 1, Timpson 2. I got Dangerfield at 3 above Winsboro. Dangerfield has their quarterback coming back, Chase Johnson. They went to the state 7-on-7 tournament. They still got solid athletes over there. Winsboro's lost Kyler Finney, their quarterback, and they lost their top receiver in Wilcox too. So Winsboro's got some stuff that they're going to have to figure out on that side. That's why I would give Dangerfield the edge over Winsboro. Garrison right up there, I think, right behind them. And then is that Westwood? Yeah, Westwood with the addition of Denman from Palestine. With Westwood getting them, Westwood could be scary good this year. Lovelady, I'm high on Lovelady, but I would also I would throw a team in here. We talked about since I didn't do the poll, we talked about other teams that we would see in here. What about the Overton Mustangs? Coach Layman said what they've done over there. A 10-win season last year. They got dang near everybody coming back. They're 10 on both sides of the ball, starters returning. So Overton, I think, will be another solid team. The Tenaha Tigers, I think they're going to be competitive and have something to say in this. The West Sabine Tigers, they dropped down a classification from 2A D1 to 2A D2. I think they'll run through the district that they're in, but they can make some noise come playoff time as well. As we've talked, there's this classification. These classifications are so deep. There are so many teams in here. Gladewater, another sneaky one that not a lot of people are talking about because they've been struggling these past couple of years. But Gladewater and Coach Levere could have something to say over there. We talk about Atlanta. We talked about Atlanta a lot last year. Mount Enterprise has a nearly 3,000-yard rusher that scored 40 touchdowns for them last year who's coming back. If they can figure out how to make some stops on defense, they'll be dangerous in that class too. So as far as the poll goes, I'm not going to argue the poll because, one, I didn't send mine in, and two, you can make cases for all these teams to be in the top 10. So and then some.
So I'm going to go this route first. I'm going to mention some teams that are not in our poll that I had in our poll. Okay, let's just start there. Hooks. Last year we had these guys at the top, right? So I got Hooks in there. I was Hooks was on East Texas or East Texas. I'm in. Okay, I had Hooks in the poll. Harmony in the poll, right? Like seeing them last year, yeah, they lose a lot. They got guys, they'll be okay. This is the team that I included in my poll, and I'm going to be honest with you. When I look at the rest of this list, I'm going to go through in a minute. I don't know why. I was not a fan last year. The people at Texas football are way high on this team, and I do not get the Honey Grove love. I just don't. We saw exactly why, right? We saw why. Scheduling has everything to do with it. I had number 10. Because at first I thought, okay, you know what? maybe there's something I'm missing. If everybody else thinks Honey Grove is not just a top 10 team in East Texas, we're talking about a top 5 team in Texas, according to the folks over at Texas football, right? Like I mean, so what am I missing? We'll talk about that in a minute. But listen to the teams we haven't even. KO, you ran down through this list and you mentioned some of these teams, but we haven't mentioned all these. I didn't have Tatum, Trooper, Upper, my poll. I had those 3, by the way, just for full disclosure. Jefferson, we haven't talked about yet. They got talent. Liberty Ilo in 3A, hello. Like, they're going to be okay. Diboll, we haven't talked about yet, down there a little closer to Lufkin area. New Diana, West Rusk. DeKalb's a team getting a lot of love this year. We haven't even talked about Beckville yet. They're a team, right? They lose Jacoby Williams, but they got guys down there still, right? Wascom, new coach, same system. They're going to have athletes as well. You mentioned Centerville. I think that's a smart one. Mount Enterprise and Overton you mentioned too. I think those are 2 small school teams. Tenaha, but I tell you the one that's not going to get the love early on, I think they'll earn it pretty quick, and that's the Frankston Indians. I think Paul Gold has brought in, has had time now. He's got his guys going. If I'm not mistaken, Reese Hicks has moved back in. He wasn't there last year. I think he was at Jacksonville. I think he's back at Frankston. And this is a huge coaching change that probably went completely under the radar. Josh Moore, who was one of his coordinators in Alto when Paul Gold was in Alto, as was the head coach at Cushing. He left Cushing. He's now back on staff at Frankston with Coach Gold. So I think Frankston's a team that probably should be in this top 10, or they will be in the top 10. Maybe not now. Like, I get it. We don't want to put them there now, but I think they'll get there. I had Malakoff. I said, let me stop there. That's just how deep it is in 3A, 2A in East Texas.
You forgot a team.
Who's that?
The God, the
Brook
Hill God. Don't forget about this is a TAPPS poll too.
We're not even talking. We're not even talking about TAPPS yet, right? Like, I think there's 2 East Texas teams, one that I don't talk about, one that I do work for, that I think can be in that poll at some point during the year. But I think that's just even more of a credit to kind of where we're at. But I had Malakoff at 1. I think Malakoff, and I had Timpson at 2. I was following the KO logic without knowing I was following the KO logic, but Malakoff and Timpson. I had Lovelady at 3. I have Winsboro at 4. I have just so much respect for Josh Finney. I know they lose the quarterback. Coach Finney's just proven it everywhere he's gone. Think back to Maud. Then you go to Teague. He was good. Then you go to Mount Vernon, or not Mount Vernon, but then you go to Winsboro. Like, he's done it wherever he's gone. I have a lot of respect for Coach Finney. I have Garrison at 5, and I think that's too low. Like, I don't. Garrison's a good football team. I think at the end of the day, they may be better than Timpson. You got to give Timpson the edge because they still have J.J. Garner in that group. They have a coaching change can be very detrimental to a good team like Timpson, except for when you've got high-quality coaches already on staff that just jump in. I had Dangerfield at 6. This team's a lot of talent. And they lose one of the best athletes in East Texas last year, goes on to Alabama instead of Texas, whatever. We won't fault him for that. I want to see what Dangerfield can do now. There's been some changes there. I think it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I had Hooks at 7. I have Westwood at 8, and that was before the move of Denman over to Westwood. They got, let's don't talk about Bryant, the quarterback. You got Bryant, the quarterback, Denman, the running back. 2 guys at that level that are getting that kind of love. Look out. I think that they can be a very good football team. Then I had Harmony and Honey Grove in there. But we could talk a lot about this group. So our polls are out there. Let's go.
That was the thing about this poll. It's not, I don't think it's 4A was deep, but I don't think this one. I don't think there's a concrete top as much as there were in 4A. We think we know Malakoff is number 1, and maybe they stay there all year, but there's some questions on some of these teams. Just looking out there for me, Winsboro, they lost the quarterback. They've got to replace Finney. You just mentioned Dangerfield lost a couple. They got Chase Johnson back, but they lost some players. Of course, Timpson lost the best player in high school football, Terry Bussey. Garrison, Garrison, I think is going to be scary. Them and Timpson, I think that's going to be a really good matchup. You guys mentioned Westwood adding a player, dropping a level. He's going from 4A down to 3A. It's going to be a big difference. To me, that's what is intriguing about this poll. You've got, I think ARP is going to be improved. Coach Minky, it'll be his second year over there. I think they'll be improved. In a district where is West Rusk, they may step back a little bit. Maybe there may be a playoff spot taken. Troop may come back a little bit. I think that district is going to be very interesting when we'll cover a few of those. I think Buffalo is the game we're covering for ARP this year. That's an interesting. I don't know where they fit as far as Reed, but they're way kind of far out in that district. I'm not sure how they got
Buffalo is not East Texas.
Yeah, but they're in. That's one of those things. They're in that district now, so I think that district is more open than it has been in the past. So I think there'll be some interesting games, and that's why all these teams are kind of mixed in. For me, let's see, the teams I had in my poll that weren't in that poll. I had Brook Hill. I had Brook Hill at 9 in my poll. I just think that with what Coach Ryle's doing out there and all the guys they've got coming back, I think they're going to have a successful year. Be interesting to see how the district goes because TAPPS is new for me, and Jereme can tell me it's moving up, but there's no Dallas Christian across on their side. So I mean that's got to be a little bit of a relief. I know there'll be some tough teams, and there's a little bit of travel involved this year, but I think they can improve off last year. And then of course you're going to always have the Grace rivalry is going to be in district. I'm excited about that game. I know they'll be wanting to get a little bit of a revenge off of that one from last year. So then I got Beckville in my poll. We haven't even talked about Beckville yet. I know they lost their best player, but I still think Beckville will be competitive. So I mean, there's just so many teams, and really, we could break this down into 3A, 2A, and almost have a complete poll. Honestly, there's just so many good teams.
I do want to add one thing about Garrison.
Mm-hmm.
You said it last year about Carthage that if there's a year to get Carthage, this is the year to get them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say this about Garrison. When I've been doing these district previews, I talked to 2 different 2A coaches that were involved, that were in the Garrison Timpson district last year. I talked to 2 of them, and both of them, to a man, said if Garrison and Timpson didn't have to play each other, Garrison would have won the state championship. They said outside of Timpson, Garrison was the best 2A team in the state.
I believe it.
And they have both Yarboroughs coming back. Their 2-headed running back monster or backfield monster, the Yarboroughs, they're both back.
They got Black. Black is back too. That was their inside guy.
So that's what I'm saying. Like I'm not going to just go out on a limb and say Garrison beats Timpson this year and goes and wins state. But what I will say is the same thing that we said about Chapel Hill earlier, that this is the year to do it. I'll say that for Garrison. If there's a year, and not to add more pressure to Garrison, but if there's a year to do it, I think this is the year. You don't have to deal with Terry Bussey. Terry Bussey is gone. Now, Timpson will still be a really good football team. It's not going to be a pushover, but Garrison has been the one team to play Timpson tight the past 2 seasons. Outside of that, Timpson's kind of ran through everybody. So I think Garrison, they're what, 5th in the poll right now. I think by the end of the year, it would not surprise me to see Garrison in the top 2 or 3 of this poll weekly, consistently. And then when it comes down to them and Timpson, we'll just have to see. But I'm buying the Garrison stock this year.
One of the teams I was harsh on last year. I apologize now. The folks in Beckville probably don't like me very much, but we've made up. Okay. Here's the thing about Beckville. They're in a district. Yeah, they lose Williams, but who else in the district is really going to push them for the district championship? It's not a lot, right? Wascom's the next best team, I think. I love what Harleton has done the last couple of years. They've been a competitive team that maybe haven't had the postseason success, but they've been, like, I've seen them on film a few times. They're physical. And then it's Elysian Fields or City Hawkins, Union Grove, Big Sandy. No push. So Beckville's going to get there. And then look at the district next to them. They're going to get to play first in the playoffs. We just talked about it. The best 2 teams there are Honey Grove and Cooper, right? And Cooper, for as good as they were last year, they lose a ton, literally and figuratively. They lose a lot of players, but they lose about a ton of weight on the offensive line. So, I mean, it's there for Beckville. More so, even though they're probably not as good as they were last year, to me, they have a chance to be more successful in the postseason than they were. I just think that the ceiling is higher for them. I'll say this. I think that what we're seeing here in all these districts is, yes, we have a lot of really good teams, but they're spread out across these districts. I think in 4A, for example, you have districts that you have the district of doom, right? Like all those guys are going to play each other in the regular season. Here, you can kind of build out the playoff bracket and see, hey, these teams are going to meet, but it's going to be the second round. We're going to see them all play each other. Timpson and Garrison is the exception, right? There's a few others. Malakoff, Winsboro, Jefferson, Atlanta. There's some districts have maybe 2 good teams in them. For the most part, you can kind of pencil in and almost use a little bit of ink on the postseason, getting them into that second round, in my opinion. And that's where I think that's the main difference between our East Texas 4A and the East Texas 3A, 2A, and below, in what you're going to see. But I'm with you, KO, that Garrison was scary good last year, and I didn't know that until Bret and I had him in the first round of the playoffs over the Tomato Bowl, and we were like, okay, we probably have not been talking about this team enough. Like they got some talent, and then they have some things to replace. They got to find a new quarterback. Those are things when you have athletes like they have, you can figure it out. They're not asking the quarterback to throw it 30 times a game, by the way, either. They're going to ask him to throw
No.
it 2 or 3 times, so they're going to be fine when you get there. You mentioned, Bret, the West Rusk District. New Diana, when you look at what they did last year, New Diana probably the best team in this district now, but you got to think they come back a little bit, right? I mean, they had a really hot start. I think they started out maybe 5-0. They got up in our polls. And KO, I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about Harmony, because this is, I mean, they lost some guys that have been doing it for a while for them, and kind of how do they respond now, and what can we expect out of them in a district, by the way, that they should win, just with who we know they have.
Yeah, that I think them winning the district is, like you said, penciling it in almost with ink. I mean, obviously every Friday night anything can happen, but I think on paper they are the best team in the district starting off. Edgewood's going to be really good though. I think Edgewood is going to give them a run. And Edgewood and Harmony have had some battles in the past, but the Harmony team they lost a lot. They lost, Boston everybody that we've been talking about the past 4 years, Boston Seahorn, Tyson Jenkins, Braxton Baker, Will Young. They lost a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They lost all that and still made it to the state tournament in 7-on-7. Like, I know I get it. 7-on-7, and I've talked to coaches about this. 7-on-7 is not a clear indicator of how your season will be. Like, there are plenty of 7-on-7 state champions that haven't sniffed the playoffs the next year. Like, I get it. But what I do think you can learn from 7-on-7 in the offseason is, how's your team going to compete when it's adversity in a 7-on-7 game? How are they going to compete? Are they going to fold, or are we going to see some fight in them? Like, you're going to see the competitiveness. Harmony's not lacking in that. They may be lacking in bodies, they may be lacking in a lot of other things, but as far as competing, they're not lacking. And you lose Coach Jenkins, who went over, I forget where he went, down south. But you lose Coach Jenkins. You got Coach Brian Mock, who's been the DC over there for years. Like, again, another situation kind of like Simpson. It's a new coach, but it's not. Like, it's a coach that's been at that program. He knows what's going on. The kids know him, but it's a lot of new faces. But talking to Coach Mock, he was excited because, yes, that senior class last year laid a solid foundation for this Harmony athletic program. And he didn't really outright say this, but you kind of infer, like, the kids now kind of have a chip on their shoulder, because they're tired of hearing about the past teams. They want to make their own statement and build their own legacy. So there's a little bit of a chip there where they want to make their own statement this season. And I think that can make Harmony very, very dangerous, because they're not sitting off what success they've had in the past or what the previous regime has had. They want to make their own mark. I don't think they're as strong. I don't think we see a deep playoff run this year from Harmony, but I don't think it'll be a drop off the cliff in what they do this season.
But that's also how blue bloods stay blue bloods, right? Like, the current group comes in and says, there's this foundation that's been built. We have to continue and make our own mark. That's what's made Alabama so good in the college football world, right? Georgia now, because they do have that chip on the shoulder you're talking about. We don't come here and just say, well, last year's team did this. We're like, well, yeah, last year's team did this, but now we're going to do this. And so I think that's how it happens. I think you're right. You mentioned Jenkins leaves and Mock is the head coach now, but they also lose the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. I think Coach Wilbanks is now the head coach at Queen City. So a lot of changes there, personnel-wise, coaching-wise. I still think that they're a team that could be a competitive team. But let's talk about Westwood for a second, right? We mentioned a minute ago they get Denman, but you start with Kavion Bryant. 3,000 yards, 40 touchdowns combined last year. The guy's getting love from all over the country already, and he's only going to be a sophomore, if I'm not mistaken. Then you add Denman in the mix. This is a team that in a district that has Teague and Dieball who are good, but after that it's pretty bad. Fairfield, Crockett, Huntington, and this is a team that avoids the region that has Malakoff in it. Winsboro, they're going to be in a different region. This is a team we could be talking about deep into November and December also.
Hey, look,
Yeah,
I'll say call a game to look out for. Westwood plays at Timpson week 3.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and you're right, Jeremy. This district, I think, is Westwood's to win, or Westwood's to lose, I guess is the better way to put it. I think Westwood's the best team in that district, even before adding Denman to it. And now you add a stud from right down the road to your squad. I think Westwood's going to be dangerous. And you said it too, that region 3 is not near as strong as region 2 is, especially at the 3A level. And so I think you put Westwood, I'll say, what is this? August, whatever this is, I'm going to say Westwood makes it to the regional final in 3A.
Wow, you heard it first
Regional
here.
final, Westwood. Yep, you heard it here first.
I can see it happening.
Am I far off, Coach?
No, I don't think you are. I without knowing who else is in the rest of Region 3, and I'm going to pull it up and look real fast because I want to know this.
Yeah, I don't know who else is in the region either, so I may just put my foot in my mouth. There may be a powerhouse down there that I didn't think about, but that region, I don't think off the top of my head, I can't think of a D2 team that's.
I mean,
close.
you're looking at Columbus is really good, right? I mean, but that could be who they meet up with in that regional final. We don't know how the bracket would fall in that situation. Hitchcock is another team, but listen, when you have guys like that at that level, I mean, think about Timpson last year. I know it's 2A versus 3A or whatever, but when you get to the smaller levels and you have two absolute stud athletes like you're going to have with Bryant and Denman, how do you find the guys to stop them? Like, you can scheme up something to slow them down, but they're going to hit you with something. And guess what? Because you have two studs like that and the defenses are going to focus on those two, there's going to be a third guy that we don't even know his name yet that's going to emerge because he's going to have space and opportunity. And so, it does scare me last year. If you remember the Dieball Westwood score last year, and Bret, you may be able to look this up while we're talking. I think the Westwood Dieball score was like 7-3 last year. Like, I think Dieball held them to not scoring a touchdown. And so
14-3.
14-3. Okay. So, we'll see, but I'm with you. I think it's their district. Teague is up there in a lot of people's opinion. I think Teague is one of those weird schools that either they're really good or they're down. We'll see, but I think Westwood has to be the favorite because they also got Fairfield, Crockett, and Huntington. Those are 3 district wins. You can go ahead and get out the big old fat Sharpie that used to stink the classroom up and use that one. That one's good, but
another team way down there that we don't talk about a lot that we may need to put on our radar, the Woodville Eagles.
Yeah.
Woodville, they got some studs coming back, and they actually beat Westwood last year by 3 because they were in the same district.
Yeah.
Woodville's going to be an interesting team to keep an eye on as well because they got some coming back, and they were good last year. But I don't know if they moved regions or moved classifications, but Lorena, who won state played Franklin for state a couple years ago, they are who beat Westwood last year in the playoffs. So I don't know if they're still in that region or if they moved. But
Lorena has moved up. They're in 4A Division 2.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you go. So there's another one you don't have to worry about for Westwood. That's what I'm saying. I think Westwood can make that regional final.
Yeah, Lorena's got China Spring in their district and Waco La Vega. Good luck with those teams, Lorena. That's going to be tough.
I want to. You mentioned.
They play. Look who they play first week. Lorena plays week 1. Austin Regents. That's a team that Jeremy is going to have to know about here pretty soon.
We'll talk about that in a minute. I don't want to talk about us right now, but I want to talk about this. I mentioned Frankston a minute ago, right? This is a team that's going to be in Region 2 of 2A Division 1 when they get in the playoffs. They're going to win their district. You talk about teams that can make a run to the regional final and get to the state semifinals. The best teams in that region, they're going to be one of the top 2 or 3. Axtell's in there, Tioga, maybe a couple other ones. But here's the thing: this is a talented football team with Tyler Rogers and some other guys that are already there. Like, Frankston's a team that we have not really talked a lot about in the last couple of years that we're going to be talking about pretty quick, I think. Okay, I don't know if you've talked to those guys yet this year on your preview path or whatever, but they've just kind of quietly been building over the last couple of years. They've been getting a little bit better, and this could be the year they take that big step forward.
Yeah, I did interview Coach Gould the other day. Yeah, he's excited for it. He likes the district they got put in because it's new faces that they haven't got to
Yeah.
see before, and the travel's actually a little better.
A lot closer for them.
Yeah, and you talked about their district. I mean, Corsicana, Mildred, Kearns, Carlisle, Crossroads, and Cayuga. I think Carlisle is probably going to be their toughest matchup. Maybe Cayuga. I talked to Coach McGee at Cayuga the other day too. I think, obviously optimism's high there as well. But you're right. I mean, Frankston, and Coach Gould said it too. He said that district they had been in with Beckville, Harleton, and all that was that was tough, man. And so
Yeah.
maybe, and he won't say this, but maybe a little easier district wise for sure, easier travel wise. But I'm with you. I don't see any reason Frankston shouldn't make a run, and that's exciting. Coach Gould's done a great job over there in Frankston.
Okay, Brett, you mentioned Austin Regions. Let's just get it out of the way.
Well, they were on Lorena's schedule, and I didn't get to finish that schedule. I didn't look at the rest of it because I saw that one.
Yeah.
But Lorena opens with Regents, Malakoff, Franklin, and Cameron Yo.
Wow.
What are they doing?
I don't know. But
yeah,
that's
coaches who schedule crazy non-district schedules are crazy. We won't talk about that now, but that's another season, another show. So everybody's talking about Texas and Texas A&M. The rivalry's back, and it's a conference game, and it matters now. Well, there's another rivalry in East Texas that I would argue is up there pretty good with all of them, and that's us and Grace, Brookhill and Grace. And yeah, you mentioned the travel. TAPPS did us no favors in the latest realignment. Our district has 2 teams from the Tyler area, us and Grace. It has 2 schools from 3 schools. Now let me do my math here. 2 schools from the Dallas area in Arlington Grace Prep and Dallas Bishop Dunn, and then 3 schools from the Austin area with Regents and Hyde Park and Brentwood. And it's a tough district, and it's going to matter a lot. And I'm going to tell you why. And this is not an East Texas district, but the district beside us is absolutely loaded. And so seeding is going to matter. Always it matters to get 1 or 2 and get the home playoff game, but I think now it even matters more to where you want to avoid the teams as long as you can that are at the top of the other district, because you're talking about the Fort Worth All Saints of the world and stuff like that. But us and Grace are both in some interesting spots. I have a lot of respect for Grace in a lot of ways. They've had some coaching changes. We'll go ahead and get this out of the bag now. My uncle has now come in to Grace. He's the offensive coordinator, which is a whole nother set of issues.
Oh, wow. That rivalry just got a little more intense. Okay.
Yeah. He calls the plays. I try to stop the plays, whatever. So that'll be fun. So there's some changes on both teams in the coaching world a little bit. And then player-wise, offensively for us, we lose a number of guys. Defensively, we got a bunch of guys back in the same spots. I would argue defensively, we're up there with most of the schools in this. Obviously, we're not at the top of the list in the defensive world, but we're up there with what we do. Grace the same way, and their quarterback is gone. We talked last week about Zach Davis and him being over at Tyler Legacy now, so they got to find a quarterback. Their strength is going to be on their offensive line, and our strength is going to be on the defensive side. So it's going to be an interesting matchup when we play. I don't know if either of us are in the conversation in these top 10 polls. I'll be honest with you. And that's just because I don't know what we are yet. I don't know I'm not sure they know what they are yet. I don't know if we know what we are yet. I think we have an idea of what we can be, but I don't think we know because we had a big senior class in terms of contribution that we're trying to refill. And we got some guys we think can do that. I think Grace is in the same boat. And even the other TAPPS schools here in East Texas, TK Gorman and All Saints. All Saints had a coaching change this year. Gorman had a coaching change last year. And they're
back in the same district, right?
They're going to play each other again in the same district. Last year they were different. TAPPS is a little bit different in terms of realignment. It's a 3-year average instead of a 2-year average. So we were still in classifications last year based on our COVID numbers, and which changed a lot, right? So we were up or we were down. Now we're back up with Grace, and Gorman was down. They're back with All Saints. And you mentioned we don't have a DC on their schedule. They have a DC on their schedule, and that's Dallas Christian. So have fun, Gorman and All Saints, with that. I don't envy you having to deal with them. But Austin Regents, you mentioned, they are man, they are like the DC on our schedule now in terms of what they bring to the game with the physicality. Their quarterback did leave and go to Argyle Liberty. Just a small transfer from Austin to Argyle. Not a big deal at all. I'm sure there was no athletic purposes involved in that. And then Grace Prep's in our district, who beat us last year in the playoffs. We beat them in the regular season. They beat us in the playoffs. You were there for that one, Bret, I believe.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately.
so it's an interesting district. I'll be honest with you. We I think if you told me you could pick the district 1 through 7 right now, I'd call you a liar because I don't think anybody can yet. I think there's a lot of things up in the air there, but until us or Grace can prove that we belong in that top 10, I'm not going to put us in there. I don't want to jinx us like that or anything like that, but we'll get our chances. We're going to play some teams in East Texas in this level. We play Redwater in week 1. We play Carlisle, I think, in week 4 it is, and then we get Grace in, I think, week 5. So some of the schools we're talking about, we'll get a chance to go head to head with and see if we belong, and it'll be a fun year for us, but a fun year for this whole group from TAPPS all the way up to 3A.
And the good news this year, we're going to follow you guys all season, Jereme, here on NSN. So we'll have all games will be here.
You picked a great year. All the games and all 4,700 miles we're going to travel over the course of the year.
But
we're not at home. We're not at home the whole week of October, right? You looked at the schedule and saw that, I hope.
Yeah, 4 weeks in a row. It's okay. I'm only one of those. I will be traveling on the Saturday game. That'll be the one game. I think maybe Keith will be calling that one.
The good news is in 2025, that means we have 4 home games in a row. So I'm just throwing that out there for you.
Yeah, it's okay. But technically, the one of the road games at Grace is actually closer to me than you guys. So that's actually more of a home game for me than going to Bullard to me. So it's actually the closest game I go to all season. Because I don't think I'm doing any Chapel Hill games. So Grace is about 10 minutes maybe from my house. So,
What's the one team, guys, when you look at 3A, 2A TAPPS, what's the one team that we're not mentioning you think maybe we will be? Like, is there somebody who we think, okay, this team is on the rise? Because when I look at it, I think the difference in this group and the others is I don't know that there is that one. Maybe KO, what do you think?
I mean, I like I mentioned earlier, there was a couple of teams. Like I said, I don't think – I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't know if there's a team outside of this top 10 that we have on here that will win state. You know what I mean? Like, so I mean, they're like the West Sabine team that I mentioned earlier. I think they're going to be really good, especially dropping down a classification. Like, there's teams like that I think are going to be really good football teams, but I don't think like Groveton, I think will be good. They got a new head coach and AD coach, Mike Waldy, down there in Groveton. So I think they're going to be good. And Sabine, we didn't talk about Sabine. They got a quarterback, Cody Gilbert, I believe is his name. It's going to Texas Tech next year. So they have a D1 quarterback. They didn't perform so well in 7-on-7 at the state tournament when I was down there and watched them. But, I mean, that's why you play the real football games. So I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be really good. Mount Vernon, we usually talk about them. And this is the first time I think we've mentioned Mount Vernon's name other than Jereme trying to send Coach Finney over there. But I think that Mount Vernon's going to be really good too. Mineola, they got some people coming back and changing some things over there. I think 3A and 2A and TAPPS, I think and we didn't even mention 6-man football. You got the Union Hill Bulldogs over there in Gilmer that are going to be battling for deep in the playoffs as well. So I think these 4 classifications, including TAPPS, is just some of the best football that we'll see. I think it'll be the most consistent football yearly. I think weekly we will see these games be tighter and tighter, and I think we're going to see some surprises too, and that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah, I think honestly we looked at 4A and there was a few at the top that we thought, well, these could be state contenders. I don't think there's as many of those in this poll, but there's maybe a couple that could be. But I think there's going to be, like you guys said, the depth. I think you're going to have more teams that go 2 and 3, 4 rounds deep. They're not going to win state, but they're going to have a real opportunity to go pretty far. And maybe we'll have a surprise. Who knows? But there's so many teams that can be competitive. And I think that's what excites me about this poll every week, because you never know what you're going to get. I mean, we may have 6 teams lose week 1 on this poll. It may be a complete shuffle that we have. It may take 4 or 5 weeks for us to even figure out, well, who's gonna be the teams that to look for. I mean, you got Winsboro at number 2. Well, they lost a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know how good they're going to be. We don't know. We think Timpson's going to be good without Terry Bussey, but who knows? They may not. I mean, Garner got hurt last year, so he's coming off an injury, and I don't know how the rehab and all that's going. If he'll start the season, Kyle, you may know more about that if you've heard anything about that. But he was hurt.
I haven't heard anything.
And so he's going to be coming off an injury. How good will he be coming off the injury? How much can he play early? I mean, it's one of those things you don't want to try to ride a horse too much. That's what happened. Kind of, they were riding him a lot with Bussey out, and then that he got injured. And so many things that can happen. And this classification is going to be so interesting, and that's what's going to make it hard to do our pick'ems each week. But it's going to be fun. Man. We're gonna have a fun time. I'm going to try to defend my title here on of the group. I've got it. I've still got it here. My championship belt. Tied for second overall, but still nobody here in the NetSN team was able to dethrone me. So we'll see if any of you guys can give me a shot this year.
And let's be honest, outside of me and KO, there's no challengers.
Wow. Okay.
Speaking of defending, I want to defend myself real fast. I knew I wasn't crazy. Coach Finney was the head coach at Mount Vernon in 2017, 2018. And he was on the staff there for a few years before that. He went from Maud to Teague to Holday Zeta to Mount Vernon to Winsboro. Actually had a stint in Mesquite ISD for a year between Teague and Holday Zeta. But I didn't think I was completely crazy. I've been called worse, but I knew I wasn't losing it altogether. He was there. Pre-Art Browse.
Well, man. Yeah, pre-Art Browse.
I think Art Browse replaced him, actually.
He did replace him, and because that was the year Browse came in, and Browse left in 2020, I think, because that was the year that Mount Vernon went. No, 2021, because that was the year that Mount Vernon went to the state semis.
Yeah.
And then ended up losing. But I do want to shameless plug here. We've talked about a lot of East Texas teams, and I've interviewed a lot of these coaches on KLTV. So if you want to hear some interviews from these coaches, you can go to kltv.com, click on the sports tab, then you click on the red zone tab, then you click on teams, and then if you see a little video play icon out next to the team, then they have an interview with them, and you can listen to the interview with that coach. So you don't have to listen to us talk about it. You can hear it straight from the horse's mouth, straight from the coaches. We're talking 3A. Let's see. I haven't Finney's on there. We got Timpson that'll be on there. We got actually all those schools that are on there I haven't got to yet, but there are a lot of 3A, 2A, and other schools that are in there that you can, and 4A, 5A, 6A. So check that out.
Tell you my favorite thing you've done though. I appreciate the coach interviews. I'm going to pump you up a little bit here. I thought the interviews you did with the players at the Christus whatever the official name of the Christus Media Day, I thought it was fun. And look, here's the deal. My kid was on there. He's an idiot, whatever. However, I enjoy hearing from the coaches, but obviously I enjoy hearing from the kids, because you mentioned in last week's show, there's all this optimism in week 0 before things get going. And to hear what those guys think and what they like, that's what energizes us coaches, right? Us old guys who go out there, and I mentioned last week, it's been so stinking hot, man. Like, all the summer was great. Then we get into practice and it's 105. It feels like 130 if you're on a turf field. Those guys have all been working hard. And that's the thing. That's the hard thing about this season. We sit here and talk about who's going to be good and who's not. And the truth of the matter is, there's 25 in some cases or 125 in some cases worth of kids. They're going out there every day. And at this point in the season, they're thinking they're winning the state championship. And that's what makes it great. That's what makes Texas high school football better than anything else in the world. That's what makes it better than any other thing in the world. I don't care about the Olympics. I don't care about the NFL. Like, you give me high school football where those guys go to class all day together. They go to practice together. They go through all the ups and downs of life together. And then they get a chance to go out and say, you know what, no matter what, we're winning it all. And they'll believe that until they'll find a whistle, and they'll still be thinking they can. And having a son who's a senior, I tell him, like, and you guys know this, don't take it for granted. Like, it's gonna be gone. And so it's East Texas high school football to me is the greatest thing in the world. I hear people from other areas talk about this and that. Doesn't matter. Give me East Texas, Malakoff included. Sorry, Professor. Give me East Texas high school football over everything else in the world. And we're in the greatest season. Even as a basketball coach, I love that. But there's just something different. You guys know this. There's something different about East Texas high school football season.
And if you like football, then you're on the right network, because we're going to have lots of football this year. We mentioned it, a few of the teams we're covering, but we'll have Chapel Hill games on Texan Live. That is a paid subscription. We do that through the school, but we'll be covering them all season long on there. We'll have the Brook Hill Guard, all 10 games and playoffs on NetSN. We also have, adding this year, the Rusk Eagles. We'll have all the Rusk games here on NetSN. The Center Rough Riders will return to NetSN as well. Chris and Shires and those guys down there. Also, this year, Larry is everywhere. He's going to be doing a game of the week down there, bouncing around with Shelbyville, Tenaha, and all towns down there, maybe on the schedule. Maybe Timpson. We've got a lot of those games up. And he's a lot of games there. We're also going to have one ARP game on there, and also maybe a couple of Tatum. And then we're working on kind of a couple of more games in East Texas of some of the smaller schools around here as well. So be looking out for that schedule. A lot of the games are already posted, but we'll have it up. And the one place you can find it, you can either find it on our YouTube channel, on our website, netsn.live, or if you really like having your mobile device with you, always have with you, and you want to know what's going on NSN, the mobile app. One of my favorite things that we've done here at Net shows the developer and the brains behind the operation there. He's developed this app, and not only that, but if you're like wrestling, our Off the Ropes shows are on there as well. So you'll see some of those familiar faces. So we like to talk wrestling every so often. Some of us do anyway. Some of us avoid wrestling and don't come on the show because they're doing other things. Me and Kyle talk wrestling. We used to have a guy named Jereme Hubbard on there, but he kind of disappeared. I think he went through the fire table with a barbed wire or something too many times. I don't know. Maybe he decided not to come back. But anyway, lots of things going on NSN. And of course, Kyle already plugged it, but Kyle does great work at KLTV. He is now, what is your title now, Kyle?
Technically, it's sports digital content producer, but you could just call it sports producer.
Yeah, he's all over the place on KLTV now, and bringing you all kinds of interviews and stuff. So make sure you check it out. We're just glad to have him. He's like, outgrow. He's a superstar over here. He's like our news correspondent. Now we got the paper correspondent, Brandon Ogden. He'll be on the show off and on this year, and bringing his knowledge of high school sports as well.
I'm not the superstar. My pops is the superstar. He's in a commercial. Have y'all seen him on? If y'all watch KLTV, you'll see him in a commercial. Him and my mama are in a commercial.
Oh, you got him on a commercial? Did you get into?
I do not have a commercial currently. No.
Oh, well, I need to get you a commercial, Kyle.
Well, I've shot one. I just don't know I've shot one. This TV stuff and commercial making stuff it's above my head. I just show up when they tell me to, and I let the experts do all the editing and all that. So I have shot. There is a promo that has been shot for Red Zone Overtime that I am involved in. Now I don't know when it'll air. I haven't seen it, but mom and pops are in a commercial.
So information of those that are in East Texas that are listening to our show or watching here, Red Zone Overtime. Give them some details on that during football. How can they find you? What time and all that kind of stuff?
So we have the Red Zone show, which comes on at 10:35 right after the newscast. That's with Michael Coleman, and that's when we'll do the game of the week and show highlights and all that. Red Zone Overtime is right after that, so around 11:05, and it's not on TV. It's streaming only, so you have to download the Red Zone app or the East Texas Now app. You download either one of those, you'll be able to watch it, but we come on around 11:05. We'll talk. I'll either be at our game of the week where we were at from the parking lot, or I'll be back in studio, and we'll kind of recap some highlights that we didn't get to during Red Zone. And then OT is more of a preview show. So we'll be looking ahead to next week, right at the end of Red Zone. So Red Zone Overtime, and there's no time limit on it. Sometimes we could go for 10 minutes. Sometimes we go for 30 minutes. There's no time limit on OT because it's streaming. We're not taking up any TV time. So make sure you check it out. Red Zone app. And download the NetSN app first, then download the Red Zone app so you can watch me after the game.
There you go.
I like it. I'm going to be on a bus a lot this season. I'm going to be watching KO every week.
There you go. There it is.
I'm going to do it for our Beast from the East Part 2 show at the Halls for next week. Same time right here, 7 p.m. on Tuesday evenings. We'll be picking our weekly Pick'em Challenge will start next week. So if you haven't gotten the app, again, go get it so you can make your picks. And you can come along if you need help with your picks. Just tune in Tuesday night, and maybe we'll steer you the right way. Maybe we won't. Who knows? Hopefully,
pick everybody I don't pick, and then you'll be fine.
Hopefully, we'll get Vince and Corey on with us next week, and so I can continue to beat them in the Pick'em Challenge. They were scared to come tonight. I guess I don't know. Maybe they're just not ready yet. I don't know. But that's going to do it for tonight's show. For Kyle Owens and Jereme Hubbard, I'm Bret Swinney. We'll catch you next time right here on the Beast from the East show. See you next week, everyone. Good night, everybody.
Lean on your brother tonight. Let your brother count on you every play tonight. Okay? And come out and have fun. The gates are locked. Ain't nobody getting out now. They can't run. The gates are locked. Let's bring the fight to them, guys. Yes, sir. Hey, brother. Let's pray.
The Northeast Texas Sports Network is dedicated on delivering the most entertaining sports broadcasts in East Texas. And if you're interested in having your next sporting event streamed